Fallout is one of my favorite gaming franchises, and today on Rayl Deal Games, I'm going to be sharing my ranking of every Fallout game from worst to best. Now, I've actually got 12 things on here, which anyone who is very apprised of Fallout media is going to be maybe raising their eyebrows at, but that's because I kind of wanted this just to be a wide Fallout ranking, so I am going to be including things that aren't just video games. So I'm going to be including the Season 1 of the Amazon Prime show, the board game, and the Magic Commander expansion. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just dive right in, shall we? With number 12, Fallout 76. Now, I think the idea of an MMO Fallout game is cool. I think it's a good idea. I think Fallout 76 was a terrible implementation of it. I have never enjoyed this game. When it first came out, it was so broken. I really feel like there should have been a lawsuit against Bethesda for the broken state of this game and for the just broken promises regarding the pre-order bonus of the canvas bag that became a nylon bag. That seems like a really big problem with the business side of Fallout 76. But on the gameplay side, there's a lot of problems with Fallout 76. If we're going to kind of keep the RPG feel of this game within the Fallout world, I feel like tonality-wise, they should have went with a more classic Fallout tone because it's more survivalistic in its framing, and that would have made it a little bit more interesting to explore with your friends. Instead, this is more of a modern Bethesda take on Fallout, which I think is counterintuitive to an MMO style Fallout game. Out of all the games on this list, this one is the one I definitely played the least. Was not a big fan of Fallout 76 at all. Number 11 for me is going to be Fallout Tactics. This game is a very flawed game that could have been something truly special. It has some things I really like, such as its kind of almost blend of strategy role-playing and RTS systems. But by and large, this title really fails to match the magic of the first two games, which this one was directly following, and it also doesn't supersede the impressive design of the later installments either. I would be remiss to call this a bad game. It just came out super flawed, and unfortunately for Fallout Tactics, it is an incredibly buggy experience. There are loads of bugs with this game. It's one of those things that there's so many. It would have to be completely built from the ground up on a remaster in order for it to work, and there's just no reason for Bethesda to do that, because this is not the game that, if remastered, could actually sell well, I think. Number 10 for me is going to be Fallout Shelter. Fallout Shelter is a fine game, perfectly fine. My big qualm with Fallout Shelter is the mobile gameness of it. I'm not a mobile game person. I don't like timers restricting me from doing things. Fallout Shelter is a ton of that. It was free, it was fun for a time, but it did not leave a lasting impression on me. Number 9 is a game I often see at the bottom of lists like this, and that is Fallout Brotherhood of Steel. Now, Brotherhood of Steel is from this wave, this kind of miniature wave of games in the mid-2000s that were taking RPG properties and putting them in an ARPG-light, campaign-focused experience. So they were definitely trying to follow on the heels of Diablo 2 with an isometric action gameplay loop, except they don't do random loot drops or loot grinding, which is kind of core to Diablo 2, and instead focus on the strengths of the RPG franchise that they're coming out of, with a story focus, dialogue options, and questing. The other games of this particular miniature trend in gaming were Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Champions of Norath. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, obviously, Baldur's Gate franchise, referring to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, D&D. And Champions of Norath was coming out of EverQuest. It was an EverQuest world game, and they were kind of following the failure of EverQuest 2. Brotherhood of Steel is the worst of these, so it is by no means a perfect or great game, but that style of game I've always quite enjoyed, and I think a lot of people dislike that style of game because it, one, doesn't do Diablo 2, the thing it's trying to emulate, very well, and it also doesn't do what the franchise is known for. I think Baldur's Gate and Champions of Norath are generally positively received, but Fallout Brotherhood of Steel being the worst of the three times that this happened, for a myriad of reasons. The Fallout universe does not play well with that gameplay style because guns completely break the system, and the general campaign flow of Brotherhood of Steel was very flawed. It seemed like it was trying to replicate Fallout 1, where you start with raiders, you go to ghouls, and then you end up fighting super mutants and deathclaws. And that was kind of interesting, but even as a kid, I only played through this game one time, whereas Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, I rooted through that game many times because of how enjoyable it was. And I think the focus on melee versus ranged combat definitely impacted that. So not a perfect game at all. Makes perfect sense to me that it ends up at the bottom of a lot of these lists, but I personally didn't think it was too bad. I thought it was playable when I was younger, and I wouldn't be against going back to it at some point for one single playthrough. Number 8 for me is going to be Season 1 of the Fallout Amazon Prime show. This was not a bad season at all. I actually really enjoyed it, and I am excited for Season 2 later this year. The only real critique that I have of the Fallout show is that it really is Bethesda Fallout. It is not original Fallout. It really has that kind of zaniness, that wacky wastelandness that comes with the Bethesda era of the franchise, which at this point is most of the franchise. Whereas I think the show itself could have been really nice as a Fallout 1-2 type thing. Because Fallout 1 and 2 had a lot of fun jokes and stuff in them, but they balanced it with some real heavy stories. And I think Fallout Season 1 gets kind of close with that, with the character of Cooper Howard. And Ella Purnell's character also, I feel like, has some good elements of this. But I just wanted it to go maybe a little bit further, and I hope Season 2 goes a little bit further as well. This is the part of the list I would call the great section of the list, worst to best. This is the great section, and we're going to work our way up to the best. So this is really good. It being 8 low is not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm excited to see more. Number 7 for me is going to be Fallout the board game. This one I may get a little criticized for because this is not the best board game ever. It's not even the best video game to board game conversion ever. But I think this game is quite fun. I think it's enjoyable. I played it once or twice and really had a good time. Now, whether it holds up longevity-wise, that's really the tough thing to say. Unlike the Doom board game, which I felt was quite good, quite fun even, this one definitely is a taste-dependent one. And I do think fans of Fallout will like it, whereas general board game fans may not like this one over other experiences that they could pick. Number 6 is going to be Fallout MTG. These are 4 commander decks that Wizards of the Coast put out in 2024, I believe, and they're all really cool. Buying them as a set of 4 and keeping them unmodified is a perfect way to get your family into playing Magic, in my opinion. And that's what I said in my review of those earlier this year. Now, obviously, I have these, and I am planning to upgrade them. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Dogmeat deck together with the Final Fantasy VII deck because they actually work really well together. And then I'm just going to upgrade the Fallout 3 based Science deck with more energy cards. Energy is one of my favorite mechanics. I love energy, so being able to play that within Commander would be super fun. But the 2 that I'm really excited for are the Legion deck, which can get easily combined with the Mardu Tarkir Dragonstorm deck from earlier this year, which I also have, and then the Master Fallout 1 and 2 deck. That one's so cool. I love the way that the Master keeps bringing things back stronger as a base form and then upgrading them by mutating them constantly. It's just a very flavorful set of cards that I think any Fallout fan would appreciate once they get the handling of the Magic game system. And that's why it's got to be number 6. I really enjoyed it, and This is a product that's going to bring me a lot of joy in the next 15 years of my life, I think. Number 5 is going to be where we get back to the main board of the video games, and that is Fallout 3, Bethesda's first game in the franchise, and a quite solid one. So Fallout 3, I didn't play until it was years later. I didn't play it until 2012. So it was like 5 years old by the time I played it, and I really, really got deep into this game. I loved the game so much. The reason the game is going to fall at the bottom of the top 5 here, though, is because I do think the roleplay in this game is fairly limited. They do cover a lot of tough subjects, but then I also feel like they don't levy any consequences, moral or otherwise, for those harsh things that you can do. You can blow up Megaton. That's a very heinous act and a very iconic one for this game. But there's really no consequence socially for doing that. You just get rewarded with a room in the 10-penny tower, and that's it. When you go to Rivet City, they don't care that you did that, and you could make the argument that they don't know, but what if you sell the children of Little Lamplight to the slavers? That's a little bit of a big moral problem, right? But no place in the game mentions this. That's very counter to Fallout 2, where it is mentioned, and it will absolutely restrict your ability to deal with certain places, as it should. There should be a moral consequence to that, right? But in Fallout 3, there really isn't. And once you played the game enough and you see all the holes in the roleplay of the game, it really starts to break down as an RPG in a way that a lot of the other titles don't. Fallout 3 is also kind of a rehash of Fallout 2 in a lot of ways. The quest for the Gek, the Enclave, it makes sense because Fallout 2, as we'll talk about later, really, really good game. And I do think that the way that they framed it here is interesting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with just using the scientific products that have been shown in the games already. It's just that a lot of the reveals really reminded me quite a lot of Fallout 2, and that game just does all of that plotline better, or all of those framing devices better. Now, Fallout 3 has a lot of stuff I really like. I like the Pittsburgh DLC. I think that is a very compelling DLC. It's a very interesting one. I also like Rivet City quite a bit, and the synth quest there. And I've always found that the final confrontation with the Enclave with Liberty Prime at your head is excellent. I really, really love that whole sequence where you're walking up to the Jefferson Memorial with Liberty Prime. That's such a cool part, and why I think the ending of Fallout 3 makes up for some of the MacGuffin stuff that I'm not a big fan of. So by and large, I really, really enjoy Fallout 3. This one's in my top 100 of the 2000s. In fact, all of the games on the list from here on up are on my top 100 for their respective decades. So I do quite like this one, but I don't like it as much as the others. Number 4 for me is going to be Fallout 1. For a long time, Fallout 1 was my favorite game in the franchise. For a long, long time it was. But after working on the video that's going to be coming out on Friday of this week, it did drop a little bit for me, because things that I really liked about it, the design of the 2 final dungeons, for instance, are a relatively small portion of it. There's several parts that the highs of Fallout 1 are quite high, but they're kind of like surrounded by a bunch of stuff that's not bad or anything, but just lower in hype, in my opinion. The high points for me absolutely are Junktown, Necropolis, the Mariposa military base, and the cathedral. But there are a lot of things that you have to do between those sections that kind of draws out the experience. I'm going to talk more about the raw design of Fallout 1 on Friday, so I'll leave it there for now, but I do really, really like this game. I find it very fun. I love the turn-based combat, and this is the game that basically jump-started what we identify as the modern CRPG. I mean, that it started that gameplay style that Baldur's Gate would take up, and would lead to Baldur's Gate 3 down the line. CRPGs before Fallout 1 were more like Ultima or Wizardry, although Wizardry I think is more of a dungeon crawler. So I really do quite like this game. There are multiple pathways that feel very interesting and unique from one another. You have the good route, the evil route, the genocide route, and also the stupid route. In Fallout 1 and 2, if you have very low intelligence, you are impossible to talk to, and it completely changes the way you play the game because it's the hard mode. It is the hard mode of Fallout 1, and I quite like that. It can be mixed with any of the other ones, kind of, and it's a design feature that I hope they bring back to the franchise at some point in the future. Number 3 is going to be the most recent mainline game, and that's kind of a crazy thing to say because it came out in 2015, 10 years ago, and that's Fallout 4. So Fallout 4 is basically Fallout 3.5. It is an advancement of Fallout 3, but I do think the roleplay on display in this particular game is much better than Fallout 3, even if consequences for actions are not levied against the player here that much either, when they really should be, because this is a very survivalistic community building experience with the Minutemen and the base crafting. So there should be more consequences for actions that there really isn't. What I think Fallout 4 does extremely well is its main quest. I find it quite compelling to roleplay a father or mother looking for their child. I think that's a really cool framing device. There were a lot of criticisms about Fallout 4 back when it came out, that there was some ludonarrative dissonance with this because you can just run out and do anything you want and ignore the main quest, which a parent wouldn't do. I would argue that's a player problem because the game is infinite, so once you finish the main quest, you can do all that stuff anyway, so you don't need to do that. And if that's causing a narrative dissonance for you, it's kind of the onus is on the player for that, for making that decision. And so I've never really held that against Fallout 4. Is it the best main quest the series has ever had? No, I don't think so. I think even Fallout 1 has a better main quest with the Master as the villain. But the fact that you can resolve this quest in multiple ways is pretty cool. The companions for Fallout 4 are pretty awesome in my opinion. I love the Paladin Dance romance quest, especially when you find out that he's a synth. There's a lot of really good aspects to that reveal and how you're able to roleplay the ending of it. I felt that was a really, really cool and well done particular part of this game. And gameplay wise, out of the Bethesda games, this is the most fun to play, which definitely impacts its placement here. Power armor feels more like power armor, better than it's ever felt in any of the games. The only criticism I have with the power armor is that the batteries probably should have lasted longer on the power armor, because it really feels like you don't get to play with them that long before you have to refill its energy tank, and that gets really annoying really fast. But by and large, I found Fallout 4 to be a fun game to explore, a fun game to play in survival mode, and all of its systems I felt like provided a good playground for role-playing the character that you want to. Do you want to be an evil character, a good character? Do what you want. I think the big problem with the roleplay is that there is no shades of gray with your character. You're either good or you're bad. One of the two, and there's really no middle ground, which a lot of the other games provided you more moral grayness that you could roleplay with your character. Number 2 for me is going to be Fallout New Vegas. I love New Vegas. New Vegas is basically what Fallout 3 should be if Van Buren actually could have come out. So Fallout New Vegas, despite some of its technical problems with the doldrums that can randomly hit you, the big massive frame drops that will come out of nowhere for seemingly no reason, and things like that. Other than that, this is quite an awesome game. It has 4 playthroughs that are easy to see. Well, I would say actually 8. A good and evil playthrough for all 4 factions. And then you have all of these separate endings for every one of the settlements, on top of some rock solid DLC. And really, the only negative with Fallout New Vegas in this particular point is the fact that the world is too small to facilitate all of these options. So eventually when you're replaying, it's going to get boring, just because when you're doing the Boomer side quest or you're doing the Cons side quest, it's the same quest regardless of what you do pretty much. and it just means you have to do it multiple times. It would have been much cooler if this could have been twice the size, and each of the factions had different things they wanted to do to approach their victory at the second Battle of Hoover Dam. But that just was never going to happen with the very limited resources Obsidian had to work on this title, and I just think they did an excellent job with the time that they had, the resources available, and the vision that they had in mind. Fallout New Vegas is a game that should have gotten a sequel at some point, and maybe someday it will, no idea, but we're not going to see a new Fallout game for quite some time, so hopefully it can get a remaster at least so it's still playable. And speaking of games that need a remaster, my number one is going to be Fallout 2. Fallout 2 is in dire need of a remaster because the versions that are currently available are massively broken. Fallout 2 crashes all the time on the Steam version, and the GOG version I've read is not that much better. The fixes don't even work that well, so how can this game be my number one? Well, I played the version that did not break every 2 seconds on the original disc on a Windows XP, and it ran perfectly. It did not crash 35 times in a week, and what I was left with was one of the best role-playing experiences that I've ever had in my life. New Reno is my pick for the best city in an RPG from a role-playing perspective. There are so many ways that you can do the New Reno quest lines, because there's multiples of them, and they both foundationally change the ending for New Reno. You have multiple ways to play a morally gray character, and if you commit certain acts, you get a roleplay perk that affects how people treat you. So if you do really, really heinously bad things, people will not trade with you from certain settlements. Certain settlements will shoot you on sight, which is exactly what it should be if you're role-playing that style of character. It has real consequence for actions. It also has an amazing campaign. You competing against Frank Horrigan is an excellent framing device. You getting to see what happened to all of these places, these iconic places, Vault 13, Shady Sands, all of these really, really important places from the first game, and you get to see what happened after a lifetime has passed, is amazing. You get to see the birth of civilization once again with the NCR, Vault City, Marcus's Super Mutant Refuge, and loads of other places in the game. This really felt like a truly realized Fallout world, and really the only thing that pulls you out of that experience is the fact that this is where the wacky wasteland begins, where you can come across a TARDIS in the desert, you can come across Monty Python's Holy Grail Knights, and all kinds of weird stuff. But I think those pop culture references that are consistently made throughout the game and the other things happening in Fallout 2 don't detract from the overall value of the role-playing system, which is far better than it has ever been in the franchise. And I really do hope with Fallout 5 that they take a look at Fallout 2 and try to make something more like that, because Bethesda can have their cake and eat it too if they were to base their next game on Fallout 2. They could have their zany, wild, goofy Fallout, but then they could also have real roleplay ability. Fallout 2 blows every game out of the water in that particular aspect. And yeah, that's my ranking of every Fallout game, plus more from worst to best. But now I want to throw it back to you guys. I want to hear your list. What is your ranking of every Fallout game? I'm very curious because there's a lot of consistency in how people rank Fallout games. What really is the question is, are you a New Vegas fan? Are you a Bethesda proper fan with 3 or 4? Or are you a classic fan? That's what you can really see based on somebody's ranking, and that's what I want to see from all of you. So let's chat about that in the comments below, and while you're down there, consider smashing that like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. I make new gaming videos every Wednesday and Friday, and I will be talking about Fallout on Friday, specifically the classic games, a little bit more in depth. You may want to stick around and check out that video. Regardless of what you choose to do, thank you for keeping it real with Rayl Deal Games, and I hope you all have a nuclear day.